We'll be highlighting 2 lucky resident animals from the shelter who need a loving home. Plus, we'll be featuring pictures and information about the animals on our website each week. It's WBVP WMBA 99.3 FM and 95.7 FM's Pick of the Litter each Monday and Friday in the 11 o'clock hour of Teleforum. Pick of the Litter on Beaver County Radio is brought to you by the Beaver Falls Beauty Academy, Nally Elias and Associates, Tom Sipes Demolition, Albert's Heating and Air Conditioning in Conway, and Beaver County Radio. 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and 1460 WMBA.
95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com, invite you to tune in to Sounds of Faith. Tune in Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 for a mix of the best sacred music of all time. Sounds of Faith is brought to you by Crawford Tire and Beaver, the William Murphy Funeral Home, City Rescue Mission, MRS Physical Therapy, Circle of Friends, J&J Spratt Funeral Home, and Rome Monument and Inspirational Gifts. Sounds of Faith, uplifting, relaxing, and inspiring radio. Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com. Listening to Beaver County Radio on your iPhone or Android device is super easy.
I'm a truck driver. I listen to you on Bluetooth. I got it linked to the truck and I listen to you all day long.
Just download Beaver County Radio in the App Store and you can be listening all day long.
I listen to it all day, every day.
Just find the Beaver County Radio app in the App Store and you can listen wherever you are.
I'm at work right now and I'm listening to it.
Stay connected to what's happening in Beaver County, your smart device, your mobile device, and streaming live at BeaverCountyRadio.com. Multiple ways to listen. One clear voice. Beaver County Radio.
I'm Ben Affleck, and I want to thank you for joining me and supporting Paralyzed Veterans of America. Our vets need you.
My name is Jennifer Steele. I'm a U.S. Army vet. I served in Iraq, and I have MS. I'm here at home with my 12-year-old son. I'm in a wheelchair and I can't leave the house because I have a compromised immune system. My biggest fear is that if I came down with COVID-19 and it didn't kill me, it would cause me further disabilities. My aunt and my sister have come down with symptoms and I'm afraid. My sister is my best friend in this whole world. And if anything ever happened to her, I'd be lost.
Our veterans fought for us. Let's fight for them. Join me and help fight for them by supporting Paralyzed Veterans of America.
I am so grateful for the PVA. They're making sure that we have all of the food and supplies that we need right now. I want to ask you to please send whatever you can to helppva.org. Thank you, and God bless you.
Tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, presented by Heritage Valley Health System, weekdays from 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's an all-new show on Beaver County Radio, where Mike discusses the issues important to Beaver County.
Urinated at a car wash in front of children. Oh, yeah, and police officers.
I think it's the end of society as we know it. I think it's one of the signs of the apocalypse.
There's also special guests, weather, sports with Matt Durzik, and news every half hour with Curtis Walsh. So tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, weekdays, right here on Beaver County Radio.
Welcome to How We See It, featuring author and attorney Rocco Cozza, along with realtor and podcaster Eric McKenna. Content and sponsorship are provided by Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna. Now let's join our show host for today's program on Beaver County Radio.
And welcome to How We See It. I am one of your 3 co-hosts, Eric McKenna, along with, of course, Rocco Cozza and Matt Durzik. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good.
Doing well, man. Good to be back.
It has been a couple weeks.
Everybody's smiling today.
It's been a week.
It's a nice, day of weather here for the winter.
For the winter, yeah.
Yeah, it's clear. It's not snowing. It's not precipitating. It's nice out.
Yeah, it's not gray.
It's not bingo. That's
Correct.
it.
And it's supposed to be warm this week, too, I think. like in the 50s
What is
and
warm
60s.
exactly for
50s
the middle
and
of
60s?
February? Oh, that's
in
great.
February, I'll take it any day of the week.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, today I want to talk about consequences.
What's going to be the consequence of this show?
There could be many. Yeah. So
Okay.
we're going to go right into it. Matt was kind enough to come on my podcast this past week.
Love it.
Matt Durzik,
Had a
guest
good time.
on the Eric McKenna project. We just launched. As a matter of fact, I got the editing done rather quickly.
Nice.
It's already up, I think, and live.
Yeah, I think it went live. What was it, last night? I think
On YouTube and Facebook,
see it.
and the audio download portion of the audio version, the actual audio podcast, will be up probably this afternoon. But excellent conversation as well, Matt. Appreciate you doing the show. But sitting and talking with Matt, we were discussing generations.
Yes.
That was the essence of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent conversation.
Extrapolate.
Well, we went into that conversation because I thought back of all the years him and I have had banter on this show.
Mhm.
I mean, they were talking years, man. And I can have these conversations with him and about generations.
Mhm.
And I've learned a lot over the years and humbled by the fact that if you take a deep breath and you really listen, understanding can come from that. And I learned through those conversations that if I just listen and try to put my preconceived notions aside of what I already thought was true,
Mhm.
I can learn about different generations because it's really interesting to me. You know,
Okay.
because being an early Gen Xer, yeah, we're Gen X.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm at the they call it the cusp.
You're
of
at the
Gen-
cusp. Yeah.
I think 64 to 80.
You could be a baby boomer.
I'm not because baby boomers started before 64. I was born in 66, so I got that 2-year buffer there. Don't try to throw me in the baby boomer.
I'm going to
generation.
Google that. I'm going to Google that on the break.
I think the easiest way to determine a boomer from someone on the cusp of boomerism is
Boomerism. That's a word.
yeah. It's like the boomers lived through Vietnam, and the ones on the cusp were born during Vietnam.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. I vaguely remember Vietnam as a child, but the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. But anyways, through these conversations I've had with Matt over the years, I have learned things, and I tried to put myself in the perspective of generations that I am not part of. It's been healthy. So we just carried that conversation this time with no commercials, no interruptions for almost 2 hours. And it was good. I can't say I understand, certainly, that entire generation. I even agree with a lot of their positions, which is natural, I think. But
Sure.
at least there's understanding, and
Yeah.
hopefully vice versa. You
Okay.
know, and I think that was healthy. But sitting and having a conversation with Matt, I had this epiphany: like, do the generations look at the concept of consequences differently?
I think so. I think we grew up in school.
Gen X now we're talking about.
Yeah.
We,
You messed around. You got paddled. Like, there was corporal punishment.
Yes.
Like, there was consequences to your actions, physical consequences to your actions, immediate consequences. Now I think there's a lot of situations in the world where there are no consequences to actions, or not severe enough consequences to deter action.
Or to change behavior.
Yeah, because think about it, like in school, like I was a good kid 'cause I didn't want paddled by a teacher. Like I didn't want to go out in the hallway and get a big piece of wood smashed against my butt. Just didn't want to do that. Like said, okay, I will not act out. That now in schools, I feel like that's kids act out because they just can, because there's no real consequence. I think it's just a different world now.
So Matt might be a little young, but I want to ask you anyways. Do you both have an idea of when that tide changed in regards to when parents started to become really offended, when they really started to, when they decided that paddling and correcting my child is now an infringement upon my parenthood? Because it changed at some point. And I think it was rather quick. I think it was like 87, 88.
I was going to say like the 90s, like the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, because I know by the time I was in school I was in kindergarten around 97, And that's,
hate you.
I know. Oh, trust me.
I was in college.
You would have hated the show on Monday because that was. 'Cause I'm pretty sure the word I dropped was "Welcome to We're Old," the podcast,
which gives me a whole nother idea for a show. By the way.
Oh, God.
Anyways, I think it was definitely around that time. I do not remember any part of that in my childhood at all. So by that point, it was already gone.
So paddling was gone.
It was gone. And I think the reason for it is pretty, I would say it's pretty simple. The parents saw their kids growing up, and they was like, hey, you know what? We don't want our kids to go through this because we had a real bad time with it.
That's where the mistake was made, in my opinion.
You think it was a mistake?
Yeah, I think so. Because yes, and I will say this very bluntly and candidly, and it's part of the cliched saying, but we're built differently. We handle things differently because we had
in
consequences.
Society, yes.
To actions.
Society, yes.
Like we don't get offended. Our generation doesn't get offended. Like I don't get offended by anything. Like I have thick skin. Like I think we handle consequences differently because there were severe consequences to our actions and behavior growing up. So it was instilled in me at a young age that, hey, if you do things that are out of the societal norms or out of your morals or things you are taught, there's a consequence to that. Now I feel like that's not the case, and that's why we have all this, like, everybody's offended by everything. Everyone deserves everything. It's like, that's not how the world works, unfortunately.
I agree with you on the part of everybody being offended not being a part of the good solution.
Correct.
However, I think that's more of a case of how is this, I think that's just a case of general, as Eric would say, lack of sophistication when it comes to thinking is the idea of being offended.
Okay.
But it does go to something we were talking about Monday night, which was, I think the reason that that type of punishment is so, behind us and why it feels like there isn't a level of authority anymore when it comes to, discipline is because, and we were talking about this, that there's so much information out there now on the past as a whole that it becomes very hard for anyone of any age to point the finger at somebody else and say, I have the authority to tell you that you did wrong, because there's information out there that says, oh, but if we go back in time, you might have said this. There is a record, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, but it is out there. And that allows for the parties involved to have that discussion and say, okay, what do we do now?
Well, let's break this down a little bit. In school, when I was coming up, if I told the teacher to F off, I got paddled. Right? That's what happened. Like if I said something inappropriate in school, you got in trouble for that. Now, that's just the normal course of action.
It's gone completely the opposite direction, yeah.
So to me, that's like that. I think that, that should still be a punishable offense. Like that's a common decency in the world.
Oh,
agreed.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any discussion.
But that's what happens. Like that's what happens in schools.
And I think one of the reasons is, and I don't know why this happens so often in society. Again, maybe it's just, lack of sophistication or a level of impatience. But I think whenever there is a change like that, a change that says, okay, paddling is too far, the ruler was too far, but the reaction to it is to go the opposite way.
It's exactly what they've done.
To say, okay, we're not going to punish anybody, period.
Because we don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right. We don't want to hurt their feelings, but
and we don't want to upset the parents because we don't want the vitriol at the school board.
The response is now, oh, why do you feel like you had to say that bad word?
I think
no.
I think they metamorphosed into that. I don't think that was initially.
No, I agree.
When they got rid of it, I think society's kind of metamorphosed into that. But to your point, yeah. So let me talk about the same generation Rocco's talking about 10 years even earlier, and let me throw a little kind of monkey wrench into this. So. I graduated high school in 83, so I went through the 70s and 80s in junior high and senior high. Okay, and I went to a public school here in, it's no secret where I went. I went to Cornell High School, Cornell Middle School, Cornell Educational System. I will tell you that there were a few teachers in there that took corporal punishment way beyond decency, to the point where me and a lot of other people I know, if you really sat down, I might take a couple of beers for them to really talk about it. But we saw some things that were pretty horrific. We saw some levels of paddling, punching, other things that went on.
Sure.
Male teachers, it was what it was,
Mm-hmm.
inflicted on male students. Okay.
Yeah.
So there were excessive. I can talk about gym teachers. I can talk about in middle school. I can talk about mathematics teachers, science teachers that were punching kids in the arm, punching them. You'd walk by and be upset with them and punch them, and it's okay. Now, maybe that particular child had a bad parental situation. I don't know. But there was a lot of leeway in some, not all, some instructors took it too far. That was the bad side of corporal punishment.
Yes, correct.
And I can't believe that Cornell was this little microcosm in this real specific situation. I'm sure that happened in every school.
Sure.
So those instances might have been what ultimately spearheaded the elimination of corporal punishment. So basically, that's not good. They
Right.
probably used episodes like that and labeled it abuse, which I'm inclined to believe that some of the stuff I saw, kind of was.
Yeah, of course.
We had teachers that would turn the lights off in the gym and give the kids balls and just let them go at it. I mean, we saw a lot of weird things in my school, just like I'm sure every public school did in the 70s and 80s. I get it, right? But somehow we see these people now, and all's forgiven. You know, we have to see them in public, as senior citizens. And all of us somehow have just forgotten all about that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I never did. And I have no problem mentioning it because it happened, right?
Yeah.
The point is, without getting too specific, which I could, but I won't, without doing that, the idea of anything goes in terms of discipline wasn't healthy either. And that's all I'm saying is there was excessiveness that went on there too. Did it serve the purpose? Yes. Scared the living bejesus out of me and a lot of other kids, so maybe it deterred us, but at the expense of a child and multiple children that I saw. It was just too much. So how do you solve that? Do you leave corporal punishment in there, but are you only allowed to do one paddling, two paddling? You can only use this velocity. How are we going to administer appropriate corporal punishment? You know what I mean?
The problem comes down to any system we talk about, right? We find the worst things of a system and eliminate it. Instead of having a sit down and saying, how do we restructure a system to accomplish the outcome we're trying to achieve? We never do that in society.
No.
We look at everything and say, well, this is terrible. Let's eliminate it all. Like, we're going to eliminate fossil fuels. You can't.
100%.
You can't. Like, you can't do that.
We're
go to
living in
extremes.
extremes.
We go to
Yes.
extremes. We say, well, this is bad. Eliminate it all. Well, how about not, and sit down and try and, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve, and what's the best way to achieve that? So with corporal punishments, okay, we're trying to deter negative behavior. Well, there's got to be a way to solve that if we all sit down and talk.
But
we went the opposite way. It's like, now it's like we got to make sure everybody feels good, no matter what they do, no matter the conduct.
Do you think that starts, though, with our leaders, with our political leaders? Because case in point, it's like that issue thing, right? They see something that they see a perceived, maybe even sometimes it's just a perceived injustice. They see it, and they go, oh, they run with it. They grab it, and they take the exact opposite extreme, and then they make that public, and then they push and they push and they push. They don't. There's no moderation, like you said.
The problem I see in the world in general, we live in extremes in black and white when the world is gray.
Always has been.
Like, and even in politics, it's like it's either this or this. Well, no, it can be a combination
Correct.
of both.
Oh,
like,
correct.
There's Democrats, Republicans. There can be policies that appease both if we actually sit down and try and solve the problem.
Well, that's the way it used to be decades ago.
Right, but that's anything.
Mold, right?
Like, I think we went that way with kids too. We went from one extreme of like, oh, this is such bad behavior, and we're doing these things to kids, it's going to harm them mentally, to now, let's make sure everybody feels they're special, and everybody, and I agree, kids are special, right? And you have to give kids the right framework and the right mindset and the right parenting to understand if they work hard in the world and do certain things, they can be successful. However, I'm not going to tell my son who's 5'9", my size, hey, if you work really hard, you can be an NBA basketball player.
Right.
We as parents have to understand the limits of our children and have to understand like how to parent them a certain way. And we've gotten to this point where it's like everybody thinks they're entitled to whatever they want. And that's not how it works. Like you don't come out of college and make $100,000 a year because your mom told you were special. You come out of college and make $100,000 a year because you're better than everybody else. But this is the problem we're having, and I see it. I see it when I talk to people. They come out of school and just have this entitlement mentality that I was told I was awesome and I can have whatever I want in this world. And I worked hard enough. It's like, no. The 1% is the 1% for a reason.
Yep.
Because they've done what other people are not willing to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm teaching my kids. I'm teaching my kids, yes, you can have what you want, but the amount of work and effort and suffering you will go through to get there, there's a price for it.
And sometimes it has consequences.
That's what we're not teaching kids. We're not teaching them. Yes, we're telling them all this stuff, but we're not telling them there's a price you will pay. If you want to be a successful athlete, that price you're going to pay is you're not going to have a social life. You're not going to have friends. You're not going to have to be able to go to the prom and all these parties, and you're going to be working your butt off 7 days a week if you want to get to the major leagues or the NFL. Like, we got to teach kids that. If you want to make $1 million someday, that's going to take an amount of work you can't even comprehend right now. Like where I am in the firm, like I would have never comprehended the amount of work I do today 5 years ago.
I don't understand how you do it now.
Like you can't. But we have to get back to teaching kids this.
I agree with what Rocco's saying, at least from a individualistic perspective. I think when it comes to parents raising their kids, I think they do have to teach them that level of, basic mindset and that, how the world works.
Right.
I will say from an emotional standpoint, the idea of, what to teach kids and how to teach them, when it comes to education, it becomes a lot tougher.
Sure.
Because now you're dealing with several kids from several backgrounds, and now you have to sort of strip that back down to sort of the bare bones operation of how do I communicate to these kids and how do I, project some sort of, not necessarily altruism, but values without overstepping somebody's boundaries or trying to misunderstand them.
Well, and I think that's what makes a good teacher. Like I remember teachers growing up that were able to speak to different kids. Good point. They knew they were able. They actually, because I believe, like I had amazing teachers growing up, like in grade school and high school. I still remember them to this day because you knew they cared, and they would speak to different kids differently because they knew their background. They actually took the time to understand the kids. And I think there's a lot of teachers that do that today.
I think so.
And but there are some that I think just get into the system.
Mailing it in.
And yeah, exactly. And it's like, no, like we have to, you're in a profession. Like I believe teaching is probably one of the hardest professions. They are way underpaid. 100% I agree with that. Like I think that it is a selfless profession.
And often not respected either.
Exactly. And like I respect teachers to the extremes because they are shaping the youth, right? And they should be compensated more. But they should be compensated based upon performance,
100%.
Like any other job.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem. They're just compensated for time served. And that's where the system breaks down.
And we know why that is.
Well, right.
Good, Matt.
I was going to say, we're getting to that time.
Good stop,
We are
Matt.
off
Good
to
stop.
the running today.
It's been 2 weeks, man. I've got a lot of stuff to say.
Today. Friends, thanks for letting us be a small part of your weekend, and more specifically, your Saturday morning. Rocco Cozza, I'm Eric McKenna with Matt Durzik. We will return.
Did you know that facial expression, body language, and voice inflection account for almost 70% of how the spoken word is interpreted? How you appear, how clearly you can speak, and how confident you are when you smile, eat, and talk can impact almost every aspect of your life. Regular dental care from St. Barnabas Dental in Beaver affects much more than just your teeth. Even sleeping patterns can be improved with oral care from St. Barnabas Dental. Dr. Henry Windle and Dr. Jason Stracola offer life-changing solutions by restoring dental health, function, and appearance. Proper expression and greater overall life enjoyment start with the team at St. Barnabas Dental. Call St. Barnabas Dental, located on Tuscaroras Road in Brighton Township, at 724-495-3350. It's dental care that's apart from the ordinary. Click stbarnabashealthsystem.com.
Have you noticed bad behavior has become normalized at interscholastic athletic events? Some fans seem angry. They lack civility toward one another. Some even get aggressive and unruly. Time out! What is going on? This has to stop. Let's not forget, school sports aren't just about winning. And they're definitely not an excuse to take your frustrations out on the official or the opponent. They're about teaching lessons like perseverance, respect, and empathy, so students can learn and grow as people, not just as players. We all have a role to play in setting a good example for our students and teaching them these important values. So fans, it's time to step up your game and behave positively at interscholastic athletic events in Pennsylvania.
This message presented by the PIAA and the Pennsylvania State Athletic Directors Association.
You are listening to How We See It with hosts Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna here on Beaver County Radio.
It's such a slippery slope. We're talking about corporal punishment, right? It's such. I can give you plenty of examples, which I won't, but plenty of them that were like moments where it was taken to the extreme and it wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
But then again, now we have this 30-year look at it, 35, 40-year look at it, not having corporal punishment. And I can't say that society's better with not having it.
No, I agree.
Do you know what I mean? Like
it's kind of going from eating too much at the buffet to not eating anything at all. It's like
Yeah.
neither
Living
of
in
which is
extreme.
healthy.
It's like Rocco said, we're living in extreme.
We are. That's the problem with everything. If you really, I believe if you zoom out right now in life, right, the main issues in the world are because of the extremes, right? Because truly, like I always say, even when it comes to politics, 80% of us all kind of want the same stuff.
No question.
We may articulate it a little bit differently. We may have a little bit of variation, but the majority of Americans, we all want to live free, pay our fair share of taxes, do what's right, help other people. It's the extremes where it goes crazy.
They want to burn it down.
Right. It's like, no, we can't do that. And I think that's what happened with the educate. Because again, coming back to teachers, like it's the hard. I can't imagine. I student taught when I was in college for a month. I was like, there's no way. Like I can't. And I was so. I was getting an education minor, which I don't.
Oh, you got an education?
No, I don't think I finished it. I don't think I finished it because I was student teaching. I was a junior in college, student teaching seniors in high school.
Oh,
so it was like basically the same age as me almost.
Okay,
and they would come to W&J to party, and they
No
look
doubt.
for me. I'm like, I'm kind of.
Hey, didn't I just see you at the party last night?
I got sick one time. The one girl in class had a crush on me. She brought me soup, like to my fraternity house, because I was out for a few days. I had the flu, and I'm like, this is weird. I'm like, I feel like this is not. I know you're 18, and I'm like 20. I'm like, I feel like this is crossing a line. Like, you brought me soup, but it was so. I can't imagine like being a teacher. Like it's got to be the hardest profession. It really is, because you do have kids from all different backgrounds. You don't know their story, right? You don't know, their home life,
Right.
and you have to be able to assess that and lead them a certain way. And I think we need better education for teachers to teach them these things, because maybe they're unequipped. I don't know. I think there are some amazing teachers out there, a ton of amazing teachers. I had them growing up. I know them now. I think it's a profession that is, outside of, first responders and the military. Like it's a profession of service. And I think
selfless service.
It really is. But there's so many, it begins with parenting too. Like parents have to get better. Like we have to teach our kids the right things, but also set reasonable expectations for our kids and let them know how the world actually works.
This is what I think in terms of parenting. Just again, 100-mile view, right? And I don't know the reason for this, but it seemed like well before the internet era. I want to go back to the early 80s, 70s. It seemed like when I think about parenting then, there probably was simpler in some regards because there was less things in society, less inputs, less distractions, things. But I also think that it was easier to make good decisions about how to parent in that era as opposed to the challenges that are out today. And I think that is, I want to go out on a limb and say it. I think the parenting was better then than it is today.
Yeah.
And overall, I believe it was because maybe it was just simpler. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I agree. I think, again, we were talking about this on Monday as well, is that there's so many options out there now for anyone to grow up and become somebody that, and I think it's a mixture of that and kind of going back to what we were talking about before with corporal punishment, where it seems like parenting and sort of raising a child to become somebody has gone from one extreme to the other. Back in the 40s and 50s was, okay, you're going to go through school, you're going to get a job in the mill, and you're going to make some good money. Now we know that there are so many options out there, and that this idea of, becoming, I want to say the big person on campus, but to sort of find a very niche path for oneself is so much more easy to do that it complicates the process getting there, if that makes any sense.
I think I know exactly what you're referring to. There was what you're saying is society had paths in decades prior. I'm not saying we should have had paths, but society was built like, why did, like you said on the show multiple times, high school and college were formed to create
workers.
Yeah. So, and I think that and the internet has changed that whole dynamic to a great degree. I think it was just simpler, and there was pathways based upon oftentimes just perceived aptitude. And then the kids get slotted in, and then they go.
Yeah, and I think the other problem with parenting today is, one, parents are trying to keep up with the Joneses. One, they're trying to, oh, well, so-and-so has this, well, we got to make sure you have this. And then parents are also trying to, one, live vicariously through their kids for things they missed out on in youth, and two, try and, like, I had all these hardships, I don't want my kids to have any hardships.
Right.
But those parents are, like, good human beings because of the hardships. So you have to understand, like I look at myself, like, I had hardships growing up, and it was like a difficult life, but like things happened, and I want my kids to face hardships. I want my kids to get hurt. I want my kids to feel pain, because that's what builds character. If I sheltered my kids from all of this, they would go out in the world and have no idea how to live.
Yeah, and
like if I catered to my kids and like did everything for them, and they wanted for nothing, or I was at their beck and call, they would get out into the world and get smacked in their face, because that's not how it works. And too many parents have raised kids. Like, look at sports now. Like, you could pay, $3,000 and put your kid on a travel team, and, and we'll do this big signing ceremony like he's a professional athlete. No, you're just paying $3,000 to pay on a team, when in reality, it's not going to make it. He's not going to make it to the major leagues. But there's businesses out there that have these, create these schools, or these, travel hockey, or, all these different, travel basketball, where they're like giving kids this unrealistic expectation.
Well, I think it all caters to the parents. I think creating these, we can go beyond sports. It's like we have reveal parties now. We have all these moments now. So when you criticize, which I have done many times on this show and prior shows, I think there's a lot of unnecessary BS in society in general.
We didn't have a real party, but we had a cake.
Well, celebratory style.
Right.
Like, we celebrate things that. So again, the pushback against that viewpoint is, well, what's wrong with human beings just finding moments of happiness? I get it. So I have to temper what I say with understanding that there's nothing wrong with human happiness. I want more of that. But it seems like in the guise of specialness, everybody want to feel special all the time.
Talk about this after the break.
We will.
It's a big discussion.
This is a good one. How we see it. Well, we're going to the news.
Yeah, we are.
Matt Durzik, Rocco, Cozza, I'm Eric McKenna. Stay tuned for Town Hall News.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Ukraine supporters have circulated a proposed resolution to the UN General Assembly on the eve of the first anniversary of Russia's invasion.
Supporters say the proposed resolution underscores the need for peace, ensuring Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, unity and territorial integrity. The proposed resolution, obtained on Friday by the Associated Press, is broader and less detailed than Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's 10-point peace plan. UN diplomats, speaking on condition of anonymity because discussions have been private, said this was a deliberate decision by Ukraine and its backers to try to gain maximum support when the resolution is put to a vote on February 23. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
5 days after that earthquake struck a sprawling border region between Turkey and Syria, rescue teams are still using thermal equipment in the desperate hope of finding anybody else alive. An update from the BBC's Tom Bateman.
These are the moments of grief that people are experiencing, not just by the day, but by the hour and by the minute here, and still they wait for more news. And at the same time, many of them don't have homes to live in. There are some camps here in Adana, but the facilities still are very basic, and it is freezing at night. So this remains a very severe humanitarian crisis, not just in Adana, but across this region.
Safety investigators are subpoenaing pilots over a close call at JFK Airport.
Safety investigators issued subpoenas for pilots of an American Airlines plane involved in a close call at New York's Kennedy Airport last month. The National Transportation Safety Board says the cockpit crew refused 3 times to sit for a recorded interview. The American plane crossed an active runway without approval from air traffic controllers, and that led to a close call with the Delta Airlines jet, which had to abort its takeoff. Ron DeRockstra reporting.
More on these stories at townhall.com.
Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare, and in the process started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-626-5252. That's 800-626-5252. 800-626-5252.
A fuel leak at a pipeline facility in California forces a shutdown of gas and diesel deliveries from Los Angeles to areas that include Las Vegas and Phoenix.
Despite the pipeline leak, officials said Friday they believed supplies would not immediately be affected. Pipeline operator Kinder Morgan tells the Associated Press the leak was discovered Thursday at a company station near Los Angeles and that its CalNev and SFPP West pipelines were shut down. It says there was no fire and no injuries, but did not say how much leaked or when service would be restored.
That's correspondent Julie Walker reporting. Police in North Carolina have released body and dashboard camera footage that shows the arrest of a black man who died after officers repeatedly used stun guns while arresting him. Daryl Tyree Williams died at a hospital after being confronted and handcuffed by officers in a Raleigh neighborhood on January 17th. Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. A popular fast food chain is jumping on the plant-based bandwagon.
Next week, Chick-fil-A will test its first plant-based entree. It's a breaded cauliflower sandwich. It will be tried out at restaurants in Denver, Charleston, South Carolina, and the Greensboro, North Carolina area. The Atlanta-based chain says it spent 4 years developing the sandwich after customers said they wanted to add more veggies to their diets.
That is Rich Thomason reporting. President Biden Friday hosted the nation's governors and Brazil's president in separate meetings in a busy day at the White House. He says he wants to work with Congress in a bipartisan manner.
One of the things we have a chance to do this year is disprove that we're just a broken system, that we're divided. We're just based on extremes in both parties, and we can't get anything done.
Officials also announced that Biden would travel to Poland on February 20th ahead of the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Diamonds might be a girl's best friend, but the station that's been your ear's best friend since 1948 is celebrating its diamond anniversary year. Thanks for listening to Beaver County Radio.
All right, we're back. The breaks sometimes are better than the show, friends, but unfortunately, FCC would not dig it.
Neither would a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't R-rated. It was just...
Oh, no, it wasn't R-rated at all. It was probably PG-13 at the most. And
it was just interesting.
But yeah, some people were...
I basically said, and we can ignore this and address it later if you'd like.
Sure.
But it appears to me that us humans, and I include myself in this for sure, Facebook has brought out a level of confusion in our brains. We have somehow conflated or somehow confused the concept of moments with the mundane because we share a lot of the mundane.
Yeah, like I look at, so we were talking about like long Facebook posts, and so I look at Facebook. It's an interesting platform because it can be used for different things, right? And I think when people
big money,
well, but think about like personally, like people will write long posts, one to give a larger audience an update about something important that's going on in their life, and that's
medical or something like
medical, like family,
weddings.
Yeah, like that's like, and that's what it should be used for. Or you want to use it as a place to reflect your own thoughts, right? Like I look at it sometimes like that's like to go back and look at how you thought. But there are people that just say, "Hey, I had dinner today. It was awesome. Then I went to the gym, and then I had." A cold shower, and then now I'm watching Netflix with my significant other. Boy, it was a busy day. I can't wait to wake up tomorrow and do the same thing again. And they'll post that on Facebook. It's like, that's like a diary. Like, I don't know. Like, I try and understand the logic, and maybe people are using it as their online diary, which is okay, but
Well, they'll make it private then.
And it's ad nauseum. Like, there's a few people I can think of in particular that just literally, there's nothing of substance other than a total just recollection of their day. Like nothing exciting even happens. It's like, hey, I was walking down the street, saw a blue bird. I went back into the office and I forgot my Pepsi was there. And now I'm going to turn on the computer. Like, okay, like what does any of that mean?
I changed the Cottonelle and it's smoother on my bum.
Hashtag.
Don't do it. I have the button ready, Rocco. Don't go there.
Come on.
I mean, I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff, man. And I think, I'm all about funny. Listen, I love posting funny little things in life that happen.
Yeah.
But you can usually get it out in one or two sentences.
Well, here's the thing, like stuff like that. I mean, we're all men. We all watch sports and everything.
Yeah.
There's a reason there are highlights of games as opposed
all men or old men.
He said,
what did
you
you
say?
say?
Old men or all men? I think
What's the difference in this story?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
A big difference to me.
I know.
Yeah, yes.
But there's a reason you have highlights.
Exactly.
Instead of showing the full game. It's like hey, here's a full game for everybody who missed every little second. No, people want to see the highlights.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of hard for a lot of people to sort of separate their life because nobody wants to live a life of meaninglessness. No one wants to have meaningless moments, but they exist.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly right. And I think my mic went out. Oh, no,
sorry.
That's okay.
He shut us off over here.
Trying to dump me already, man. I wasn't going to say anything bad.
No. What happened was
talking about happiness.
I was trying to mute myself, and then for some reason my brain was like, "No, everybody mutes." That's on me.
Splendid.
But I think to your point, like we were talking about happiness, right? Like the podcast we did on Wednesday night, which is a great conversation. We talked about are people more inclined to be happy or want to be perceived as happy? And that's an interesting discussion because it can go both ways, right? Because I believe there are people that are happy, but also like to show their happiness, because it's just like they're celebrating. That's them.
Healthy,
and I'm okay with that. Like if you want to post all your kids, like that's awesome. Like,
yep.
But there are other people I know that are not happy because I know people personally, but put out this portrayal or this aura of themselves to be perceived as this amazing, happy, positive person. And no one's life is positive all the time. I try and I'm an optimist by nature, but there are many days where I'm like, this is one of those days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've got to be okay. I think people need to understand why they're doing things. Because I think happiness comes from within, right? You have to understand what happiness is to you.
100%.
And I think another problem that comes with that is that when you try to, make it about sort of having an audience when it comes to social media, it becomes a point where you start trying to manufacture poignancy. And that is
big word. Cha-ching.
1-0. 1-0. Well, nothing.
Better look that one up, man.
Broke my brain this morning.
Buoyancy.
Yeah, but that's what it is. It's manufacturing poignancy because they'll come out and say, you know, and there are moments where you have to like reflect and think about things. There's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it feels that people will try to go on these, you know, little diatribes of, you know, positive thoughts or sort of, you know, deep thoughts, and really it's just word salad where you're just like, okay,
like our vice president.
You could have boiled this down to maybe 2 sentences and we would have got it.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, Matt. I think people get really confused about their own happiness because I think happiness is a very esoteric thing. Like when we were talking today, like to me, I don't believe in moments of happiness. I believe in moments of joy, but happiness is a state.
I agree.
Like I am a happy person, right?
Like
I
choose to be.
I choose to be. Like, do I have moments of negativity or overwhelm? Of course, everybody does. But if I look at myself, I believe my state is typically happy and optimistic. And then I have those moments of true joy, like watching my daughters dance, like hanging out with my son, you know, doing things like that.
Doing
like,
this show.
Yeah, like there's those moments of joy that elevates that state of happiness to a higher level. But I believe I wake up in the morning, I feel truly blessed to be where I am, to have the people in my life I do, to be getting to do what I do every single day. So I live in a state of happiness. There are the moments are joyful. And that's how, but some people think that, I'll be happy when this, I'll be happy when that. And it's either happiness is the state. You either are happy or you aren't. Nothing's going to make you happy.
Right. And I think that's a very interesting point that is not taught to children. Maybe it's impossible to teach that to children. I don't know. But the idea that nothing is going to make you happy.
Children learn through observation, in my opinion. Like I could tell my kids, be happy, but if they see me happy, that's the state they believe that they should be in and learn to be in. Like that, like I always use that example with Gabe about just when he was younger, like I never told him how to treat women. Like I never said, like, this is what you do. Like, and I remember, I think I might have told the story before, but when I picked him up one time and he was a teenager, you know, I was getting him from mom's house and he was at an ice cream place with a bunch of girls he went to school with. And I think one of them was maybe his girlfriend or whatever. And I was joking. I said, "Oh, did you pay for them?" And he, without a beat, he's like, "Yeah, that's what a man does." And it was like I never told him that, but he's always observed me.
Yeah, that's a moment.
And it was that moment of like and that's that moment I knew they're watching everything. And so I'm very cognizant of how I am around my kids because I want them to see the state they should be in and how to be that way. And I think if they observe happy parents, kids tend to be happy kids. If they observe negative parents and parents that complain and are frustrated, they live in that same state. Because you can't have people within a house living in two different states.
That's so true.
It's impossible to do it. If if the leader of the household is in a negative state all the time, it's going to drag the household down. Like look at an anchor in any organization does that, right? It drags the organization. So if you have a negative anchor in your home, the whole thing's going to be dragged down. But if you have the beacon of light that's leading the charge, like we're going to be optimistic, we're going to get through this, we're going to be happy, that elevates everybody in any organization, a family, a company, a group of friends.
This is a little, I don't know if it's on topic or off, you guys can determine this, but I've always professed for most of my adult life that the one thing a parent can do to really hurt a child is to bring negativity to, I don't even know if this happens anymore because I don't think anyone eats together anymore, but to bring negativity day in, day out to the dinner table.
Yeah.
Whether it's whether it's sitting for breakfast, sitting for lunch, but primarily dinner. I can think of in my little sphere when I grew up, the era that I was in with the hard times around us, economic hard times, so forth. I can tell you a lot. I'm going to guess, of course, but a lot of my childhood chums probably sat at the dinner table and saw and heard a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
Because primarily I think economic woes.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stuff absorbed by a child on a day in, day out basis is hard to overcome once they leave the nest. I know it was kind of hard for me.
It
I
is.
mean, I joke. I had a wonderful childhood, absolutely wonderful childhood, loving parents the whole bit. I did not face a lot of the obstacles a lot of my friends did, but negativity, permeated a lot of family time.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they were cognitively thinking about how that, parenting was different then.
Yeah.
We were built differently.
Yeah.
But that was always my problem with Catholicism, and we don't have to go down the religious bent here, but there was always suffering. It was always conversations of suffering and talking about other people's illnesses and talking about, it amazed me as a child, like what do you do? You open up the classifieds and you go right to the obituaries. People, my grandparents, seeing first thing they got the paper. Who died? Let's go see who died. It's like it's a joke, but the reality was there was a lot of built-in the 70s. A lot of built-in negativity. In my unique world, based upon religion, based upon economic times, and that kind of stuff. If that's all a child's seeing and hearing at these little moments of eating together from their parents, it's not a good vibe. And I don't think it certainly wasn't unique to me. I think it happened to a lot of kids. And coming out of that, and it's still probably happening today. But coming out of that, when a kid comes of age, if they do not have that some element of positivity coming from their parents, the world looks kind of gray.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I look at I was very fortunate. I grew up low middle class, but I had an amazing family, Italian family, like mother and my grandmother and my aunts and dad and uncles. Like they were all just really. I don't ever remember them being negative. Like
that's awesome.
They were they all had struggles, right? But they were all pretty. They were Italian, so we fought all the time. We talked loud. We used our hands a lot, but I don't remember ever being at a dinner table where someone's talking about negative stuff. Like my grandmother used to teach me, told me to be kind, treat people well. Like she was always I was the apple of her eye, and she always gave me this positive, upbeat. And my mom was the same way. She just always told me I don't care what you become, you just work harder than everybody else. That was what she instilled in me. She did not care about what I was going to become as long as I was the best at it and worked harder than everybody else. I just knew I was on a different path, but I was very fortunate. Not that my family struggled. Absolutely, every family does. But I think they were very good about not bringing it around me.
Yeah.
And I think it was because, and honestly, when I was young, I was tested, my IQ was tested really young, and I was in the gifted program. And I think my grandmother and my mom saw a different path. So I think they were very cognizant growing up about not bringing me around certain people or not, just keeping that negativity away. And that's why I think I'm an optimistic person. Even the things I've went through, I've had some struggles in life and some really crappy things happen, but I just always looked at it I'll figure it out. Yesterday in our office, we had a bunch of law students from Duquesne come. We did this Lawyers on Location program, and they come and they learn about our firm and what we do. And we were just talking. They asked some really good questions, and I said, and I was talking to them about the career in general. I said, what makes a good lawyer or a good person is your ability to be okay with just knowing you don't have the answer and being able to figure it out. But it takes a certain level of confidence and gusto, and you've got to have that I don't let things get me down. I'm just I'll figure it out, and then I've built the chops to do that. And I think that was ingrained in me at a young age.
No
I think
doubt,
it's important to do that with kids.
No question.
Yeah.
Oh, that music, great music.
Well, it's going fast today, man.
It really is.
We're on a roll today. How we see it, indeed. Matt Durzik, Rocco Cozza. I am Eric McKenna. We will return.
What do you think's the best love song of all time? You can find out if you tune in and listen to a special edition, the 1968 VW Bus and the Time Machine with me, Frank Sparks, and Eddie Crow. On Valentine's Day, February the 14th, from 9:10 a.m. to 12 noon. It's all sponsored by Roslyn Candy Castle in New Brighton. Along with hearing some of the greatest moments in music of the mid to late 20th century, you'll have the chance to call in and guess the greatest love song of all time. The winner receives a delicious heart-shaped box of Valentine chocolates from Roseland Candy Castle in New Brighton. Roseland's chocolate and the greatest love songs of all time, along with Beaver County Radio. What could be better?
Missing teeth can adversely affect speech, digestion, and how someone chews their food. Studies show that missing even a single tooth can lead to being self-conscious, feelings of depression, and low self-esteem. Tooth loss can negatively impact nutrition, as your diet may be limited to softer, often unhealthy foods. That's why dental implants are a long-term investment in your overall health. With implants, there are fewer diet restrictions, better bone preservation than dentures, and they won't affect neighboring teeth like bridges. Implants look and feel natural and can last for many years. Don't let missing teeth stop you from enjoying life. Make an informed decision. Properly placed dental implants can be a long-lasting solution for missing teeth when placed by the surgical experts. Your smile and health are too precious to trust to just anybody. Oral and maxillofacial surgeons are the trusted specialists, having undergone extensive education and training, making them the experts in face, mouth, and jaw surgery.
You are listening to How We See It with hosts Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna here on Beaver County Radio.
All right, we're back. We're back. How We See It. Rocco Cozza, Matt Durzik, I'm Eric McKenna. We're going straight to Matt.
Yeah, let's go, Matt.
I don't think he has anything prepared, but we're going straight to Matt anyways.
Well,
go.
I agree with what's been said about the idea of, permeating negativity just throughout any type of discourse because, Rocco, we were talking over the break about how, the two people, or it might have been Eric, I forget which one already. It's even though it's been like 30 seconds. The point being,
getting old, buddy.
Yeah, and I know. I can feel it already.
3-0.
Whoever was talking about the idea of people who you have been around your whole life. Your sort of anchors. People you said now I remember. Or even it's not even a matter of people who you look up to, but who you're around the most. And that again is where other environments, educational environments, religious environments. That's where that stuff really becomes a matter of responsibility for those up there because it feels like, again, you don't want to manufacture poignancy. You don't want to manufacture some sort of narrative that's not necessarily 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you do want to instill some sort of, understanding of the way the world works in the youth. And so it's such a tightrope, and I do not envy anybody in those positions to try to do what they're doing. And the ones that are usually having a good time doing it are probably doing it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. And I think to your point, like the people you're around, like that saying is that you're the average of the 5 people you spend. And even for kids, right? Like I look at kids, they are going to emulate their parents and the people they surround themselves with. Like I look at Ellie now. Like Ellie's been coming to the gym with me on the weekends. Never told her to. She just wants to. Like because she sees that we do it, and it's amazing to me. Like you see what these kids catch on to. Like she's 13 years old, and she can't wait till I come home today so we can go to the gym before I take Melina to her dance tonight. So it's like you are that average. So you have to be very careful about who you let into that circle. Because human beings have a funny way of raising or lowering their temperature to the people they're around. If I'm like I said on
100%.
Wednesday, I said if I'm a 70% performer and I surround myself with 100% performers, eventually I'll perform at 100%.
Yes.
I'll raise my temperature to their level. If I'm a 70% performer, but I'm surrounding myself with people that are 60%, I'm going to lower myself to their level. It's just it's human nature. That's why you have to be very cognizant of who you let into that inner circle, who you're spending your time with, and who you trust in that circle. That circle's changed over time, and it truly does. Like I know that about myself, and when I'm surrounded by like good people and smart people, like I perform at a higher level. Like
certainly,
like the people I get to work with every day. We built a firm that has amazing people. They're younger than me, but I learn so much from them just because they have a different perspective. And like even this show, like being around you guys, like it elevates you. And I think people need to be cognizant of that. Like in life in general, like who are you giving your time and energy to? Because it matters extremely.
Yeah, I remember hearing, again, of course, Jim Rohn say this decades ago. He said, join a hard group.
Yes.
Where the expectations are high.
Yes.
You don't, you will not grow. I remember hearing that over and over again and just saying, wow, I started looking at my friends. I love them dearly.
Yeah.
I was looking around going, I am not challenging myself here. And I would cognitively look at people that, hey, that may have more schooling than me or doing different things and just intentionally trying to go out and start friendships or start at least acquaintances and try to expand my sphere. When I did that, wow, all of a sudden I got a different kind of job in the company. Oh, I went to a different company because I met these people who are doing harder, more challenging things. It was almost within 6-8 months, it was the benefits of broadening that circle with more dynamic people.
Yes.
It changed like this for me. And that set me on a path.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings is if you are the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Get out of the room. Yeah.
And I've always like thought about that. Like I want to be like I try and find mentors like Mike who's I've been working with. He amazes me like every week because he's so insightful. And he gets me to see the world in such a different way and open up perspectives for me that
it takes humility to get to that point. I know we kind of dismiss that, but humility is that thing, man. We just have to be willing to ask for help.
And it's something I've been thinking about the last couple minutes when you guys talk about, emulating whoever it is that you're around. I think there's this thing, and I've seen it so much on social media, and on a spiritual level, I don't disagree with it, but logically, I'm starting to. Is this idea of, because we've obviously pretty much established during the show that not everybody's perfect, not everybody's a perfect life, not everybody's going to be happy all the time.
Oh, hell no.
And he's there. This isn't Monday. This isn't your house.
Sorry.
It's okay. But the point being that there's so many people out there who feel that they need to do it on their own. That whenever it comes to either breaking out of bad habits they were raised on or breaking out of this mentality that they may have gone from a prior relationship, that they have to do it on their own. And I'm starting to think that might not be the best idea. It's noble. It's certainly heroic if you do it.
Masochistic.
Well, in a sense, yeah. At times, yeah. But this idea, because again, you guys say that the best way to better yourself is to surround yourself with people who are better. And if you're surrounding yourself with nobody, you're kind of lost.
Yeah. Well, people have fear. Like you always talk about, Rocco, their people generally stay where they're comfortable.
Yeah, right. They do. Yes.
So to get into I don't want to offend anybody, to get into a better group for you,
right?
Your growth, to get into that next level group, there could be fear could prohibit people from doing that. I mean, you have to have a little courage.
Well, and this is what I say too. Like even yesterday, talking to those law students, I said, reach out. Like human beings. Good human beings are always willing to help others.
No doubt.
Like even one of the guys that was there yesterday, he messaged me on LinkedIn yesterday. He said, "Hey, love to grab coffee with you." I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "Shoot me an email end of February. We'll schedule something for March because my schedule's crazy." But like, I'm happy to do that because if someone asks for help, like I believe I remember my grandmother telling me this. Like if you're given certain gifts in life, it's our job to share them with people. So if someone asks me for help or to mentor them, I'm absolutely going to do that as long as I fit it in my schedule, 100%. And I wish more people would take or make the effort to ask others for help because life is a team sport. There are certain things you do by yourself, but I could not have got to where I am today without the help of my mom, my grandmother, my family, my employees, like my client. Like, there's so many people that I couldn't do this all myself.
100%.
And we have to be humble enough to know you need help, and it's okay to ask for it. And there are people out there that you may have to ask 10 people. Like, and I was talking to one of the students there yesterday. She was asking, like, how do I find people like in networking that are like me or want to do what I want to do? I said, you just have to ask. I said, it may take you asking 100 people to find that one person, but someone out there is willing to do what you do and willing to help you. And I think people need to your point, Matt, we need to be okay with asking for help because you can't do it all yourself. Like life is hard. Like life is not easy. You can simplify life by doing certain things and operating in certain ways. But if you're truly on a path where you want to grow as a person, be more successful, and whatever that is. I'm not talking just financially. I'm just spiritually, mentally, relationship-wise. It's a journey, and it takes people along the way to help you. And if you're not willing to take that help or ask for it, you're going to get stuck, and you have to do it.
Let's wind it back even before that.
Yeah.
So, yes, do you think that maybe we just need to be more curious before you even ask for the help? You gotta create the want to ask for help.
Sure.
I
agree,
and that we can wind that all the way back to maybe it's just too easy to survive, and we no reason to be curious anymore. We're okay where we're at, but you gotta be curious about things to have enough spark in there of what could be, and then find a way to go ask.
I would say that I don't think curiosity is a bad thing, at least as far as, when it comes to trying to find, who you are and something you're good at. But I think in order to turn that into anything of substance or anything of, general, make it a key part of your life, it has to come with some sort of effort.
Mm-hmm.
That curiosity has to be combined with effort. I could say, this guitar sounds really cool. I like the way the guitar sounds. Let me look into, how guitars are made. But if you're not going to pick up that instrument and play it,
right,
then, that's just a curiosity. That's just sort of a meandering thing instead of anything of substance.
Think about what you can become in life and the things that are preventing you from doing it. There's this one video. It's a quote. This one woman posted, and I'm not going to quote it correctly, but it stuck with me because it's like she was talking about, like on those days when she was talking about reading a book. She's like, on those days when I'm like super depressed and in a bad mood and just being down on myself. She's like, I read this book and it says, when you die, you're going to go up to heaven or wherever you believe, and God's going to show you a piece of paper. This is the person I wanted you to become. This is the person you could have become. And she said, in that moment, I realized that the fear of not becoming that person was so much greater than the pain of doing the things I need to do to be disciplined. And like that stuck with me. It's like, yeah, like I know I'm supposed to do something. So all the things that I struggle with and the disciplines and the pain, like that's way less than the fear I have of not becoming that person I'm supposed to be.
Of course it is.
And if people let that sink in, because I think we're all meant to do something great in our life.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to uncover it. And it's hard to uncover. Like you have to do the work. You have to get to that point where you fear so much not becoming everything you can be, more so than the pain of the discipline it takes to get there. And if you flip that switch, it will change everything. I'm telling you.
Well, let me ask both of you this. I think we touched on the other night on the podcast at the Eric McKenna Project, ericmckenna.com, by the way.
Great podcast. Fantastic.
Good discussion about happiness. 30 seconds to indulge me here. I didn't figure myself out until I was challenged by a stranger to find out what I really dug in life. What do you dig? What do you like to do? And I sat there with beer in hand on vacation looking at this guy going, I don't know. I don't know what I'd like. I never gave it any thought. I never actually sat and thought about what do I like to do?
Mm-hmm.
What turns me on? What do I want to do in my spare time? When I have time to myself, where do I go? What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. And I asked the question, how many humans are running around today that just have never asked themselves that question? Like, what do you really dig? What turns you on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we don't really understand what those things are, we're not going to take any action because we're just cruising through life and things are generally okay. But we're not going to find curiosity. We're not going to even start the curiosity if we don't really know inside what we are pulled to.
Yeah.
What we're passionate about. What do we dig? And I don't think a lot of people even can answer that question.
No, and even take it a step back. Like, who do you want to be? Like, how do you want to be remembered? Like, I remember thinking that years ago. Like, okay, when I die, what do I want my obituary to say?
It's funny you said that because that statement meant nothing to me before I had kids.
Right.
And then when it was said to me after I had children, it had this crazy new meaning.
Yeah, it does. Like when I'm laying in the casket and one of my children are giving my eulogy and speaking about me, what are they going to say? Like that sticks with me every single day. I'm not a perfect person by far. I'm the most imperfect person there is. but I hope I'm doing the right things and leaving a mark on this world that even the little mark it makes it better for someone. Like, that's how I look at life. And that's like, and you got to understand that not even that has nothing to do with my passion, right? Like, my passion, like, I love what I do, the law and building this business, but it is really about, I want to be able to leave this world knowing I made a difference to someone.
Right.
Like, that's what I want to be remembered for, like, helping people and making a difference. And I think people need to really think about that. Like, what do you want to be remembered for? Like, when you're gone, like, do you want to be forgotten? Or do you want, when someone mentions your name, when someone says, hey, Eric McKenna, I remember him, he was this.
Mm-hmm.
What is the this? And if you get to that answer, then everything else starts to fall into place.
That dude had good taste in music.
Right. But think about that, though. Like, if you get to the this, everything else falls in place.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like, I want to be known for helping others. I get to do that through my passion, through what I do.
Right.
That's it. And if everybody takes that time, it's a self-discovery process. But if you take that time to understand what it is you want to be remembered for.
It also takes some personal courage for a lot of people, including
think
myself,
about your own
including
death.
myself back then, you know?
Yeah, I mean, thinking about your own mortality is the scariest thing to do.
Yeah, especially when you're getting closer to it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Although, no, it's funny.
No,
because
you wouldn't.
I had a meeting yesterday with a financial team, and we were talking about life insurance. They said, the old life expectancy tables for men used to be 70 or 75.
Oh.
Now it's 95.
Thank goodness.
That's why insurance costs more now, because the life so you got plenty of time.
I'm going to 110. I had that written. I have all my journals going back. I want to live to be 110.
They were joking at the office last week. So I'm like, I'm never retiring. They're like, yeah, they're gonna be like old man Cozza walking here with a walker, like 100 years old. They're like, oh, here comes the old man. I'm like, absolutely. Because I mean, I want to live as long as I can, but we all have an expiration date.
Yeah,
and
we don't know what it is.
No, that's why I have that picture on my wall. It says 3 words of inspiration: you're going to die. And it just makes you
also
live
have
fullest.
that calendar, which I have as well too. Are you familiar with this calendar, the Stoic calendar?
Oh yeah, we were talking about that.
The life one. Yeah, it's scary to think about it.
Yeah, especially when you just glance at it. You know, you
it's just
look
like,
at
oh, it's getting more
look
filled
at
up.
the proportions. Yeah,
right. So I'm like, oh, I used to be there. Now I'm here. But I think if people really confronted their own mortality, you'd live differently. Because some people think, I remember when you're young, you think you're invincible, like you're never going to die. When I hit 45 this past summer, it's like that's the halfway point. Like I'm on the back 9. It's like I got things to do, and when you understand that this life you have is finite and your own mortality is coming, like you tend to look at things a little bit differently. I know I did. You have more intentionality and more purpose in everything you're doing.
I got some kind of weird feeling like 7 months ago, when I held my grandchild for the first time, and like just the whole there's just the whole moment was like overwhelming.
Yeah,
because it was just cycle.
Yeah,
I don't imagine. I don't look at myself in the mirror every day and see my age. My father actually taught me that. He did teach me that. He goes, don't look at it like that. Just don't internalize that. No, I see the lines and the gray stubble. I see it all. But the point is, I don't brand myself that way.
Yeah.
But when you have moments where you're holding a grandchild, that's a moment in life. That's a moment of passage, right?
Yeah.
Not for everybody, but in my circumstance, there is another generation. I'm holding this. I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
So you have moments where you're going to be reminded about the scope of it, right? But it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, really amazing moment. I didn't look at it as a marker toward, my demise.
Yeah.
It's really mental framework.
Yeah,
really.
it is. I couldn't know. I'd be like, Gabe, if you're listening, don't get any ideas about grandkids anytime soon, dude, because
I'm sure
I don't want to
lots of them rolling around at some point.
I mean, hopefully, like at least 10 to 15 years from now. Well, let's not. Come on, man. Like, let's no. He's going to work for us this summer, man. He can have a great
well, I guess I'm saying it could be anything. Like, I was at so I would have been, I don't know, 46, 47 maybe. No, it would have been that. I would have been like my late 30s. I went to Canada. I saw all the other side of the family, which I hadn't seen since I was a child. And in this room were like insane generations of people. And anyone that goes to a big family reunion, I'm guessing that's like the thing. But if you really take stock and you look around, like there was my grandparents and a great grandparent, and I had one great great grandmother that was still alive, and like we're all in this picture. And then there's my children. It's like a really interesting thing if you sit and look at it. There's just so much human wealth.
Yeah.
If we flip and pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
I don't know how I got on this point, but this is where we ended up.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, it's definitely, when you think about life, and I think as you get older, you look at life differently, right? You start reflecting on things. You start looking forward prospectively at certain things, and it's interesting because you realize that this ends at some point.
Yes,
and that's a scary thing because I never thought about that in my 30s. Like I never thought about the end. I'm like, I'm just getting started. Like I feel like professionally, I'm just getting started, but like you also look at the end. Like, what does that mean? And it's a hard topic to wrap your brain around because time moves so much faster. Like the older you get, right? Because a year is a smaller percentage of your life.
A physicist will tell you that's not true. But the human experience is it sure seems that way.
This is why we're not in the studio right now.
Yeah, it sure seems like that. Like I'm not a physicist. I mean, definitely not. But yeah, like I think it's it's just interesting. Like I look at like last year went so fast. January went so fast. Like I blinked and January was over. And like we're already halfway through February. Like time moves so fast now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm just learning to try and appreciate every moment I have.
Now, when you fill your life up with things to do and people to see and experiences to have, life will go faster.
Yeah, you're right. Yes. Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely. My life is definitely busy and things to do.
Nothing worse than I can't imagine a worse existence though. Just sitting around watching the clock with absolutely nothing to do. We do that as children.
Yeah.
Or you're waiting on something specific to happen. You're staring at the clock and it just won't go fast enough.
Yeah.
But could you imagine being in your 40s, going to work and coming home and having to turn on the television because there's really nothing else in your life to do? That's a sad existence.
Yeah, and it's not you're not motivated. Like that's what Matt was when we
because you've chosen that path.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because we were talking to those students yesterday. They were asking about because he left a big firm, I worked at a big firm, and Matt always uses this example, and it's a really good example. And he says, when I was at a big firm, I watched the clock every day. Like when it's 5 o'clock, I can go. He's like, I can't. He's like, well, since I've been here, I never look at the clock. I look at the clock. I'm like, wow, it's 4 o'clock already. Like this day went, and that's true. Like when you find what you really love to do. Mm-hmm. And you surround yourself
there's
with
never
people.
Enough hours in the day. Then.
Yeah, it's like that's how I feel. Like there's never I never
like this show. It goes too fast.
Yeah, like I'm thinking this week. Like I have so much stuff to do. I mean, there's not enough time to do it because it's like we have this. There's Melina's sweetheart dances tonight.
But think about the converse. I mean, it's hard to fathom because you're not wired that way. But
right.
Try to put yourself in a position where you literally, because I can tell you, I got friends.
Yeah,
they're good friends that are in a position right now where they are bored a good portion of their life. They've just not done things to bring other aspects of whether it's joining a group or they don't work hard. They don't work extra hours at their job or they don't join civic organizations or they don't even go to games. I think once in a while they may crawl out to the bar because they're supposed to on a Friday night and drink their earnings away for the week. But I'm just saying this is the existence for, and it's not a negative. It's a different way.
Yeah.
But I look at that as being a mundane existence.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Like if I'm bored one day, I lose it. I just like I
think it's a shame if we're bored. Like what's your parent when you said you were bored when you were younger, what'd your parents say?
Go do something. Yeah. Go outside, go play.
Right.
Go find something to do.
Go complain about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean you're right. That's what it was, man. It's like stop complaining. Just be not bored. Do something. There's you have all these toys, you have all these things to do. Like I say that to my kids. I'm like, you're bored? Like you have Nintendo Switch, you have iPads, you have toys, you have a whole thing called outdoors. You have friends. Like there's no reason to be bored.
Yeah, it was for me when the internet hit in 96, whatever, and I was like, oh my gosh, you mean to tell me that anything in my mind, any question I have about the world, I have a way to go investigate it now at my fingertips.
Yeah.
I said to myself, how could anyone, I remember saying this, how could anyone ever be bored again? Ever?
Yeah. I mean,
it does takes no effort. You're sitting in a chair with a keyboard. You're but people
too much stuff there now.
Well, yeah. I couldn't have envisioned what it would have become.
Yeah.
But like, it just, I don't know. And again, it depends on how someone's wired. I get it.
Yeah.
I just would say, look, and again, if you're sitting watching television and you're cool with that,
yeah,
I'm cool with that as a friend of yours. But if you're going to tell me that you're bored, you've got nothing to do.
Do something.
Like, I don't know how to respond to that. Like, that's just very interesting. Someone was in their mid-40s would say that.
Well, I think anytime someone says, I'm this, like I'm unhappy, I'm bored, I don't like my job, my response is always the same. Change it or accept it.
Mm-hmm.
You really only have two choices. You can either do something different, meaning change it, change your state, change your job, fix your relationship, or accept it. There's nothing else. Like, what else can you do in those two situations? In that situation?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it comes down to. Because
and
it's not something that's going to be instant in a lot of cases.
Sure,
takes work sometimes.
But to just to take that step to say, okay, well, if I don't want to do this, then I need to do this instead.
Yeah, take the first step. Like, take the first step.
So that comment that the world's just too easy to exist now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think because if that theory is true, do you think that precipitates more people just not taking action to maybe decide what they dig and go after it? Because it's just too easy to kind of keep the status quo. There's not a lot of negative consequences with the status quo. I'm kind of cool with my circumstance. I'm not really challenged because I'm not feeling any pain of any kind. You know, I don't mean pain in terms of like physical pain, but any kind of pain because I'm just okay.
No, I think that's a good point. I think that is a problem, right? Because we don't have, like, coming back to the beginning of the show, consequences, right? In today's society, there are not a lot of grave consequences to existing. You know, like, it's just so people can just be good. Like, I'm good where I am, and if they truly are happy and that's their state of happiness, great,
it's their business,
right? But I do think there are a lot of people out there that want for more, but have accepted the comfort of the pain, the lack of pain and consequence, that they do that cost benefit analysis in their head and say, well, I do want more, but it's going to be way more painful than I am right now. I'll just accept kind of where I am.
Ask any gym owner.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's true, because I think anything in life worth having or doing is difficult. I'm not saying complicated, but difficult. Yeah. Like, it just takes hard work. Like, I always say, like, the practice of law is not complex. There's complexities to it, but it's difficult. It just takes a lot of work. You have to learn how to solve problems. That's it. Any profession, the same thing. Like, there's a difficulty to anything. And if you truly want more in life, you know, mentally, spiritually, physically, financially, it just takes work and determination, and it's difficult. And if you can get okay with that being comfortable in the uncomfortable, then it gets really easy, because you've accepted being uncomfortable, and that becomes your state. Like, that's how I live. Like, I live in a state of uncomfort, and I've just accepted it.
Well, it keeps you challenged.
Absolutely.
Have the music again. How we see it. Matt Durzik, Rocco Cozza. I'm Eric McKenna. I think these guys broke my brain. We will return.
Ever been sitting minding your own business and suddenly discovered that the world is spinning rapidly of its own volition? It can be very frightening. Vertigo, or the illusion of motion, isn't just a sensation you get when you peer off a tall building. It's a problem in the body's internal balancing system, creating the sensation that you're moving even when you're not. And you're not the only one who has it. It happens to more people than you realize. Treatment of this condition needs to be seen by a professional. It's time to call Dale Reckless at MRS Physical Therapy. Chronic cases of vertigo can persist for days or even years. Choose MRS Physical Therapy to help you now. You don't have to live with vertigo. Call Dale Reckless at MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater and Cranberry. Visit mrsphysicaltherapy.com.
What is dedication?
I am the father of a 9-year-old little girl and a 6-year-old little boy, and I find fatherhood both relentlessly challenging and relentlessly rewarding. My daughter is biological and my son is adopted. I love them both so much, from the morning when you wake up to putting them to bed at night, and every moment in between. It really is so special, and boy, is it exhausting. One thing that I fear about being a parent is the future for my children. I think a parent's job is to protect our children, but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings. But I'm also hopeful that the future holds a more inclusive and compassionate world for them.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You are listening to How We See It with hosts Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna here on Beaver County Radio.
What a great time with you fellas.
It's a fun Saturday.
It is fun despite the level of morbidity we've been talking about. Because I fear that all the things we talk about, like, you're going to die someday, life expectancy, and it feels like the show is going too fast. I feel like we're going to be hitting like a wall of, hold on, slow down.
Slow it down, Matt. Let's just slow it down.
Well, you'll never see a U-Haul being towed by a hearse. Just keep that in the back of your mind.
What?
You can't take it with you, man.
Okay.
Can't take it with you.
Thank you, Rocco, for simplifying.
Yeah, I had to simplify that. I get it. I mean, that is. I mean, that's a good statement. I mean, you've said that before. I really like that.
No, I didn't make it up. But it's a good one.
It is because a lot of people think that it's the look, I like material things. It doesn't mean I'm going to take them with me. I think living life for experience is really what matters.
So I think you probably agree with this, but to talk about possessions and things, like I have viewed like little special possessions that I've acquired over the course of my life, almost like little trinkets of memories. Like I would reward myself for a good sales year. Once in a while, I'd buy a watch.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I get bored with it and trade it in or whatever. But there have always been these little moments. So I never really wanted to have things that were extraordinary purchases because of what it would do for my persona per se.
Yeah.
But more about like, this is like I'm rewarding myself.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'll get bored with it and get rid of it. But that's kind of the way that's how I saw life. Like acquisitions were kind of like little rewards for myself for things accomplished.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of kept me level-headed to some degree, if it makes any sense. But I see, like when I look out in society, and again, I know I skew everything toward the Instagram world, but I see so much like lust for brand name expensive things well beyond prior generations. It's really something now.
Yeah,
at any cost almost. And and I'm glad that I don't have the compulsion to do that. I wonder about my kids, and I wonder about, but I don't have that. Thank goodness. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, and I don't think there's anything wrong per se with trying to do that, because I think the problem arises whenever you begin to buy things that do not reflect who you are. I think that's a big thing.
Okay.
Like for example, and John, if you're listening, I'm sorry I'm calling you out on this one. But,
sorry, John.
Yeah, but my brother, he's recently buying some baseball jerseys.
Yeah,
and
right on.
And he's a Pirates fan. There's no question about that. But
I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, well, that's a 2.5 hour show in itself. But recently, I've seen him buy, I think, 2 jerseys. I think he bought a Chris Bryant Rockies jersey, and last night I walk in and I see him. He bought a Nick Castellanos Phillies jersey. I'm thinking, what on earth is this about? And so I asked him, and he just pretty much said, "Okay, I'm starting to get a collection going." It's like, okay. And he's a baseball fan, so I don't begrudge it against him. But it's that sort of little tedious thing of, are you sure you want to do this? Because I feel like if you are buying something for the sake of yourself, and it's not reflected in who you are towards others, not that you have to be somebody for others, but be yourself always. Like
that's the struggle, isn't
like
it?
when I die, and they run through my closet, I want them to find things that, they would be able to say, okay, that's reflecting. They see a bunch of, polos.
I think that's a good goal.
Some, couple T-shirts here and there.
That's a good goal.
Plenty of hockey jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were to find something like leather pants and a ball gag, we'd be in trouble here. I'm just saying. Buy things that reflect yourself in an honest way.
No, I gotta come back there. No, I completely agree. So I look at material things kind of the same way you do, and also a different way. So there are things that I love watches, right? I look at it, it's a reward but it's also an investment. I look at watches as an investment.
It can be.
It can be if you buy the right ones, and it's something I could pass down to my son someday.
Unlike crypto,
right? Well,
the story's not written yet. I know.
But as far as I like cars, but I like cars for the experience of driving the car. Like, that's my experience. It's not to show anybody anything. It's like, I like a certain type of car and I buy it for the experience. Same thing with clothes. Like, I wear like David Allen suits. Like, I like the way they feel. I like the way they make me look. I like the experience of wearing the suit. And that's my profession.
Well,
right?
Your purchases are authentic.
Right, like they're authentic to me. But when you were talking about brands, right? Like those brands, like the Louis Vuitton, they market to what's called Henrys, which are high income, not rich yet people, because that's literally their marketing strategy.
Wow, I learned something.
They market it. They're called Henrys, high income or
Wow.
high earners, not rich yet.
Okay,
because those people that buy that, sometimes it's authentic to them, but a lot of people buy it to look a certain level in society.
Yeah, I understood.
And so they market people that can afford to buy them.
Understood.
But they're not, because if you look at like truly wealthy people, right? They're buying things you don't even know about. Like, you don't even heard about them. So I think there's...
And some of them don't care.
Some of them don't care. A lot of them don't even care, right? That's authentic to them. So there is that level. Why are you buying something? Why are you acquiring the material thing? If it's something you truly like because it makes you feel good, that's great. Or if you're doing it if you're doing it to impress others because you think a certain status you want to portray would wear or have these types of things, and that's a whole different problem in my mind.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people fit in that ball game where they think they have to have certain things because they want people to perceive them at a certain status. And just be you. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, I like nice things. I also will buy stuff from Target or Walmart.
Yes. It's such an interesting conversation because being authentic, your authentic self might be someone who really digs clothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Really digs well-made, high-end clothing.
Exactly. And that's great.
Yeah, if that's really authentically who you are, if you want to go broke buying that stuff, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Probably not good for your long-term financial health.
Correct, yes.
But in terms of the decision of what the joy that it brings you, there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly right, yes.
Does that make any sense?
100%. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of goes to something we were talking about off break where, in a much more darker sense, is that
of course, right?
Well, no, this idea of
darker than leather pants and ball gag.
Good ball gag. I'll be messed up on that for the rest of the day.
That's pretty dark, man.
But yeah. But the point is,
I heard there's a place in Beaver County that does that.
Well, I maybe I'll just share this on the other side of break.
No, we want to hear it.
No, yeah.
Well, just
breaks
that.
here. The breaks.
Yeah, the reason that people do things such as like drugs, which aren't good for your system, is to have that same feeling of wanting to have an enhanced form of life, even though it may not do well for them long term.
That's a good point. That's a real good point.
We're definitely going to hit that in here.
Yeah, we need to pick that back up, man.
All right. How we see it, Rocco Cozza. I'm Eric McKenna. And, of course, Mr. Matt Durzik. Every Saturday, 10:30 to 12:30. Thank you for making us a small part of your Saturday. And stay tuned for our friends at Town Hall News.
I do not own any leather pants.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Still hopes finding people under the rubble in that earthquake-struck zone along the border of Turkey and Syria. The BBC's Nick Beak reports.
Against all odds, there are still remarkable stories of survival. Late last night in the devastated Turkish city of Maraş, British and German rescuers found and then pulled to safety a 15-year-old girl. But reports of such escapes after all these days are now few and far between. In Syria alone, it's feared up to 5.3 million may have been made homeless. Only 2 aid convoys have reached rebel-held areas, and the UN's humanitarian chief has told the BBC an immediate ceasefire is needed in Syria to allow help to reach everyone.
This is the BBC's Nick Beake reporting. Congressman Mike Gallagher says he doesn't believe the White House claimed the president failed to shoot down that Chinese spy balloon early on because of safety concerns.
I think the thing most people have been pointing out that's quite right is that if the concern was about debris or civilians on the ground, the time to take it out was when it was over the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. And that makes no sense to me.
Congressman Gallagher chairs the House Select Committee on China and was interviewed by the Salem Radio Network. President Biden ordered the shooting down of an unknown object flying at 40,000 feet off the coast of Alaska. More on that from White House correspondent Greg Cluxton.
Less than a week after a suspected China spy balloon floated across the U.S. and was shot down, the Pentagon took action against another high-altitude object.
The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight.
National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says the president ordered the Pentagon to take down the object, which was described as the size of a small car. Greg Clugston, Washington.
More of these stories at townhall.com.
Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. And in the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-626-5252. That's 800-626-5252. 800-626-5252.
President Biden will be sitting down for a pregame interview for the Super Bowl.
The big game is on Fox this year. Fox News Channel has been critical of the president, so the White House says the interview will be with the little-known streaming service Fox Soul, geared toward black viewers. Fox News opinion hosts have conducted past presidential Super Bowl interviews. Fox Soul has no regular news programming.
That is Ed Donahue reporting. The government of Norway looking to donate billions in support for Ukraine.
The money would make the Scandinavian country one of the world's top donors to war-torn Ukraine. Norway's prime minister says the money would be used for military and civilian assistance over 5 years. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said recently the European Union's economic, humanitarian, and military support for Ukraine so far amounts to 50 billion euros.
That's Jeremy House. Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. The conviction of an Indonesian fisheries minister is emblematic of a global problem, corruption that undermines efforts to prevent overfishing in the waters around the world. Here's correspondent Jennifer King.
Experts say corruption plagues dozens of developing countries that manage some of the world's most threatened fishing grounds. A review by the Associated Press finds that in the last 2 decades, at least 45 government officials around the world have been accused of graft or extortion. In Indonesia, where overfishing has decimated the lobster population, court documents show that after taking office in 2020, the country's new fisheries minister lifted a ban on prohibiting the export of hatchlings, which were being scooped up by the thousands and shipped to Vietnamese lobster farms. Just a month later, he accepted a bribe from a seafood supplier to grant a hatchling export permit. Policy experts with the World Wildlife Fund say fisheries corruption can have a devastating impact on marine ecosystems. I'm Jennifer King.
More of these stories at townhall.com.
Now entering our 75th year of serving Beaver County. You're listening to 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA. Part of the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
All right, we're back. We are with a vengeance. How we see it, Rocco Cozza, I am Eric McKenna. Every week here with Mr. Matt Thurzik, pushing the buttons and keeping us, legal.
Yeah.
And also providing invaluable content himself.
Yeah.
He's got a lot to do. All we do is stand here. He's got to do all that stuff, too.
I literally just stand here and wait till you ask me something. I just talk. Like I said, I'm just the sidecar.
Oh, the sidecar. It's better than you calling it a side piece.
Right.
He said,
change the verbiage a little bit, man. Keep it G-rated.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's left up to interpretation, of course.
Yes. But wait, we got to get back to Matt's point, though. Like,
oh, yeah, about the idea of, people wanting to have that experience and how, in a sense, drugs might be a part of that.
I think it's alcohol, too. I think people can use that for that as well. Like,
Yeah, and alcohol's okay, and drugs are horrible, right? I mean, like, it's funny how institutionally alcohol's perfectly fine in this society.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, one's taxed, the others aren't. One's regulated, the others aren't.
Right.
Well, talk about the effect of the human. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, one glass of red wine a day is good for you, right? I mean, that's what I've heard.
Maybe.
There's Veritrol. I mean, so I think there's in moderation. Like there's again because we live in extremes, people have a hard time finding moderation.
I would agree.
And I think people that are looking to use substances to alter their experiences do not do that in moderation.
No,
they go to extremes,
and
that's the problem.
And it's weird that, we were talking earlier about when it comes to discipline, how that has become the crux is to sort of, go the other extreme. In a sense, like addiction or, drug use, that's been used too. And funny enough, the mind says, okay, well, if you're teetotaling off alcohol, it's probably one of the best things to do. But that's not the case for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's why, we've started to see things such as, I know people think they're crazy, but the things like the drug use centers in places like New York City, that's why. Because if you make them go cold turkey, it could really screw them up. Whereas if you sort of, wean them off of it in a sense, which
100%.
Again seems weird, but it's the truth.
It's not weird at all. It's a medical condition. I mean, you can be anti-drug and just say no. That's great. But what things in this world, really, what things in this world that are addictions or compulsions that people have that it's healthy just to go cold turkey on anything?
Really, there's nothing.
Not that great. Whether mentally or maybe even like spiritually or physically.
Yeah,
probably not good to go cold turkey on anything.
No,
it's hard to do.
We do.
But that's typically when people kind of have rebound or relapse, right? When you go
100%.
You have to. I mean, and everything's gradual. Like that's anything, even things you want to do in life. Like the New Year's resolution talk, right? You go in.
I was thinking the same thing.
Just like run. I'm going to do everything. It's like you're going to crash. Like step by step, gradual progression.
100%.
Same thing with coming down off something, gradual degression. I think that's how you got to look at things.
I think
like
we
that.
talked about this multiple times. I'm going to bring it up again. That's where I think Anthony Robbins in the early 90s, late 80s, he was wrong. I mean, the guy's done a lot of good stuff in his life and helped a lot of people, but that whole thing about massive change, think about all things, you got to take massive action, massive change right away. That was a mantra for his early stuff, his first two books.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to sustain that. You actually start resenting the fact that you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, I think
he's moderated his view.
Well, and I think too, he talks a lot, like in those instances, like one thing, take the one thing and make the massive change.
That's not how I remember it.
No, but that's how I've always taken it. Maybe we have different, just a different viewpoint. I've always looked at like not changing my entire life. It's like, what's the one thing in my life I need to change? And just take the massive action.
That's
to do
the smart way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's how I always look at it. Because you can't change everything all at once, right?
You'll go nuts.
You will. It's too complicated.
It's a mental strain.
And furthermore, it comes off insincere.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
It does, but in my argument, my pushback to that is, what business is it of anyone else what you're doing to make changes in your life?
Well, not really anybody's.
End of story.
Yeah, but again, we're talking about sincerity. You have to be sincere to yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I made a decision to make the changes. I'm pretty sincere to myself.
And because I think if you make a full scale change like that, there may be like 1% of people out there who is really sincere to themselves for doing something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if most people who go through a full scale change like that, there's going to be a part of them that if they fight it off, so be it. there's going to be part of them that says, are you really sure you want to do this? Are you really sure that this is who you want to be?
So, all right, I'll say it. I'm a little crusty in that regard because I decided to get my health in order 3 years ago. Lost a bunch of weight intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
All I got from people was negativity, family, friends, social media, whatever. And it was really interesting. And I love it under the guise, oh, you look sickly. Or, are you sure you're okay? After I stated politely many times, I'm fine. This is all intentional. I'm just going to get my health in order. Thank you, though. It did not stop for a good year until I was thinner for a long period of time where that was the new norm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was really, I think I shared this with you multiple times. I would show him like inbox messages, and it was like, listen, it's what I want to do. I'm not putting it in your face. I'm just the same person I've been on social media the entire time. I just look differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
that's where I'm crusty about it, because it's no one's business, because that wasn't affecting anyone else. That was something I was doing for myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Well, but I think to Matt's point too, there are people out there that make it other people's business, and that's when you're looking at the sincerity of it.
Yeah.
Right. Like there are a lot of people out there that, hey, I'm going to make all these changes. I'm going to write these dissertations on Facebook about look at all this change I'm going to make, and look at this, look at me, and like, is it sincere, or are you doing it for the attention of it?
Right. I think
that's the issue, I think.
And another point that I wanted to make too is that the reason it becomes insincere is because I think in at least from a sort of image standpoint, that this idea of wanting to change yourself so quickly, I think just the reality of how, like we've talked about, how destructive that could be, that's where the insincerity comes in too. Because if you try to change that quickly, it's going to fail, and then that part becomes insincere too. It's like, okay, you couldn't do everything in one day. You couldn't change yourself in one day. What gives? Because you had this attitude of, oh, I'm going to do it all, and then you didn't. So, and even if the only audience for that is yourself, it's still going to be a disappointment. It's still going to be a failure from that regard.
Yeah, but I'd rather have those failures and disappointments because I tried.
And maybe not the word is insincere. Maybe it's unrealistic. Like
that's fair.
Like I look at it that way. It's like you're setting an unrealistic expectation. But you may be sincere in your effort, but the expectation you have is unrealistic.
But I feel like the amount of people who go through a wholesale change privately is very minimal, and those who go through a wholesale change with some sort of public modicum behind it is far greater.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there are a lot of people that do it for the attention. There are also a lot of people that do it for the support. Because some people, like I know plenty of people that do it publicly because they need the support.
Sure.
And I think that's admirable. Like if you're willing to put your journey out there publicly and you're truly sincere about it and you're looking for the help and the accountability, absolutely. Yep. Like I love when people are posting their before and afters, or even their before pictures. Like, okay, like they're being vulnerable and they're showing where they are.
As well.
And I think that's admirable. And then people like to say, "Oh, you're just showing." It's like, no, people aren't showing off. They're maybe proud of the work they're doing. Maybe they're holding themselves accountable.
But also can be inspiration to other people. My thing was like, and here's the funny thing about it was like, I would get a lot of messages too, like, "Hey, how'd you do this?" And I would share it. I kind of quit doing that after a while because, they would either want to get into a debate that it was wrong, which you're asking me how I did it right, or they wouldn't take any action. It just after a while, it was just like, I'm just better off just doing my own thing.
Yeah.
But for a while, it was like, listen, I had to go on Facebook and tell people multiple times, "Hey, listen, I know I might look a little shocking if you haven't seen me a month or two, but this is all intentional. But thank you for the kind words." That's all I said.
Yep.
I had to keep addressing it, and I thought that was just really unnecessary. But it just got to the point where, like, I just was bummed out that we immediately go toward the negative on anything and assume the negative, I guess is what I should say. Like, we don't assume the negative. If you do assume the negative, that's your default mechanism.
Right.
Then keep it to yourself.
Yeah, but think about the people that assume the negative are negative by nature. Those are just the people they are. Like, cause you think about it, like I'm a positive person. I'm like, that's awesome. Like,
of course,
it inspired me. I'm like, he got his stuff together. I need to get mine together. Like, but that's how But negative people are out there, and typically negative people are the ones that like to talk about it.
Negatively, that's the majority of people, though. That's what I got out of that was that the most of, again, huge assumption, but from what I could see in my own little myopic view, most of society walks around in a negative state.
Well, so I agree but disagree. I think a lot of society walks around in a negative state and they're vocal about it. The other large part of society is optimistic and they're not vocal about it. I think there are probably a lot of people that are cheering you on that you didn't even hear about. Like, I was excited. Like, I'm like, yeah, but like, did I tell you all the time? Probably not.
I didn't want that.
But I'm saying, like, but there was me. Like, I'm an optimist. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like,
Yeah, I see your
you had
point.
and a lot of people just don't do that.
Yeah, and I'm probably skewed by the amount of response.
And that's why I think.
But it's like, holy crap.
Optimists need to speak up more. We need more positive people, but we need to encourage others. We need to get out there and just say, yeah, good for you, and like eliminate the negative, or at least try and counteract the negativity. Like, I love seeing, like, I'll like people's stuff that I see positive stuff. Like, that's awesome. Like, you're making a change.
Yeah.
Whether it's sincere or not, like, I still want to be a motivator.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if the assumption is that life is that difficult, you know, then why would you not be happy for another human that's making is finding positivity in their life based on their actions? That's not a hard thing to get to.
And I think in a weird sense, social media actually kind of helps when it comes to something like that.
Yeah.
Because instead of, you know, I think like back in the day before social media, if you were like helping somebody along with that or trying to give somebody your support for, you know, something like that, you had to really invest your time into it. You know, you had to call them, you know, visit them, see how they were doing.
Sure.
And, you know, if they were to sort of relapse and go back the other way, I mean, yeah, you could also, you know, there's going to be a part of you that would say, okay, you know, it's okay, you can get back up. But there might be some people out there who feel gypped by that. And I think with social media now, you just sort of, you know, you don't have to invest as much, because I think that's why a lot of people fear doing that. Yeah. They fear investing so much time and effort into something that could go the wrong way. And we were talking about earlier about this whole idea of, you know, being bored and, you know, trying to make something positive out of, you know, someone's time. I don't think people want to invest something into something that's, you know, not going to be there. And it is a risk, and it's not a risk that's a bad one to take, but if the feeling goes the other way, it does hurt. I understand that. But with, you know, social media, you can just sort of, you know, leave a like or a comment, and then that's it, you know, and then, you know, the rest is on them.
I think it's a good mechanism for humans to interact in that way. I definitely think it is. And the one thing I will tell you is, like, I don't pay too much attention to diets and things, but I do pay attention to this before and after. It's impressive for a lot of people.
Yeah, I love seeing that.
But also, on the other side, what I do pay attention to is when someone feels compelled to talk about their sobriety, whether it's a week, whether it's a year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Because whether they really had a problem, or they just kind of really think they don't want to get a problem, and they do it. I you know, that's the one, because it's so difficult.
Yeah,
if you're really doing that, and you feel you need to do that, then you need all the encouragement you possibly can get. So I've always been.
I think humans need encouragement in general, and I think we should be more inclined to encourage one another. I think humans just need that positive encouragement from other human beings in every aspect in life. And I think if people are more inclined to do that and give that, you know, positive feedback, or just that little bit of pat on the back, like, yeah, good for you. Like, life would be a lot less chaotic.
Yeah, for sure. It really stuns me. Like, we are really, a portion of our population thinks nothing of reaching out to someone and just telling them what they're doing wrong and how they should be living their life.
Right. Thanks. No guy I never met before and have no opinion of you ever. Thanks.
Interesting.
They're called
this
trolls.
Is a good one. This is a good one today.
They are called trolls, yeah.
Troll. How we see it. Matt Durzik, Rocco Cozza, I'm Eric McKenna. We will be back for the final chapter.
You've been told you have neuropathy. Tired of the burning, numbness, tingling? Tri-State Neuropathy Centers in Beaver get results.
My legs were on fire from my toes to my knees. They were numb. I've gone to 46 doctors. I was desperate. Believe me, I was desperate. I would do anything to get better because my life wasn't the life I wanted. It's the first time I'm able to walk. I couldn't walk more than 3 or 4 steps. Now I can walk blocks.
And I went to doctors and they'd give me pills. My improvement has gone 60% and I'm on my way to 100%.
You know, don't listen to the neurologist when they tell you there's nothing that can be done. And once a nerve's dead, it's dead. Because there is something that can be done. I'm living proof of that.
Tri-State Neuropathy Centers. Suffering from neuropathy? Visit marydancedin.com or call 724-940-9000. That's 724-940-9000 for Tri-State Neuropathy Centers, serving the entire Beaver County area.
This is Mike Romai. Each weekday morning from 6:30 until 9, we bring you the information you need to know to keep your family healthy.
The virus can change itself and mutate over time, so the thought is that COVID will continue to be around just like influenza, and in the future they'll look just like they do for the flu and see what strains will be most prevalent, and they'll make a vaccine that you take yearly just like you do the flu shot.
We talk about good-paying jobs in Beaver County.
It is $27.20 an hour, which is just over $56,000 a year, and that does not include overtime or holidays. You know, in the end, they'll be able to make over probably $60,000 for this position. You don't need a college degree for it. However, you do need some commitment to the job.
I'm Mike Romai, inviting you to listen to the Live Mike weekday mornings from 6:30 until 9 with Curtis Walsh and news. Matt Dersick has sports. We're streaming live on BeaverCountyRadio.com.
You are listening to How We See It with hosts Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna here on Beaver County Radio.
Trolls.
Balloons.
My
favorite part of that whole thing was, I think it was only a couple of days ago. I think it might have been The Onion or it might have been somebody else, but they made an article.
seen The Onion in a while.
They made an article that said that the balloon was just a elaborate gender reveal party gone wrong. And I saw that. I think that is beautifully brilliant. Because that was out in California too, wasn't it, or somewhere in the Northwest?
Which one? The one they shot down yesterday?
No, the one they
shot down outside of South Carolina, like over the Atlantic.
Then there's another.
It went across the whole country.
There's a second one?
Dirigible or something?
They shot something down yesterday.
Is that a blimp kind of thing?
Yeah, dirigible. Oh, okay. We're all tied up. 1-1.
I didn't say a big word today.
Yeah, you did.
You better step up.
I did. I said big words.
You got 10 minutes.
I'm a lawyer. I know words.
You introduced us to Henry. That was
Henry.
That
and
was
I said esoteric.
Acronym, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
you're welcome.
There was one that floated over, and then when it got outside of South Carolina, we blew it apart.
Yeah.
Then there was another thing. They haven't identified it as a blimp or a UFO. They haven't told us what
small car, they said.
But it was floating over Alaska,
the
Arctic Sea or some nonsense like that, and they apparently blew
yesterday.
that one out of the air too. My argument was, hey, if you want to like we want to examine it to find out what it was, why did we have to blow it out of the sky? That's
because I think it was flying at 40,000 feet, so it was impacting air traffic. It was dangerous for air traffic.
No. I'm saying, isn't there, with all the technology we have, there was no way to pop it and bring it down without destroying it in the air?
I mean, I don't know if our F-22s have needlepoint noses that we can just go up and pop it.
I think
a missile does that.
I know where Eric's going with this too, because we were talking about this Monday night when it comes to the idea of aliens coming to Earth and how we would react to it.
They're definitely here.
Well, they might be here.
I don't know. I'm just kidding.
No, I think so.
But the point is that, when it comes to like UFOs, like the balloons and the dirigibles, is that a lot of people will react to it the same way most Penguins fans react to the power play, which is to go shoot it.
Wait, what's a dirigible?
Dirigible.
Yeah, what is
a blimp?
That's what it's called.
I mean,
that's like
just to make sure.
Are you guys making up words?
Did your kids
ever? That is a word.
Did your kid? Wait. When you were a kid, did your parents ever make you watch the Hindenburg movie?
No.
There's a movie about it?
Listen, man.
I went to a theater and saw it.
You're like
the blimp that caught fire and killed all those people.
Oh yeah, Zeppelin. I remember.
Zeppelin. There was a very famous movie about
called
that.
Zeppelins.
Well, dirigibles.
Yeah, dirigible according to Google. Adjective, capable of being steer, guided, or directed.
I know words.
Noun, a dirigible airship, especially one with a rigid structure. So Eric is correct.
Well, look at you.
One.
You, the aeronautical.
I just listen to a lot of that.
Can't you let him enjoy things?
I let him enjoy everything, man. He enjoys my company every Saturday.
I do.
This was a good one today,
strange
boys.
World we're living in.
It is. Let's talk about aliens next week.
Oh, jeez.
Well, no, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Matt on the pod.
Okay.
We have time.
Yeah, a few minutes.
So, if it was determined
Mm-hmm.
indubitably that the aliens were coming,
Yeah.
and they're not responding,
Okay.
and we're doing everything they can, and here they come, and they're coming, right?
Okay.
Would mankind unify, and would the average unwashed masses be okay and deal with it appropriately, or would society break down starting immediately once the public was told, because religion might be in question now, and law and order just go out the wayside? Would there be looting and rioting and all this crazy stuff to try to get toilet paper?
It's an easy answer.
And bread. Like, what do you think would ultimately happen if it was inevitable that the aliens were on the way?
Well, if it was the year Independence Day, the movie came out, I'd say we'd all band together. It's 2023. I think it would be a you-know-what show.
Poop show.
It would be, people, again, like, 'cause I don't think people would be offended by the alien invasion. Like, I'm offended by this invasion. That's what would happen. Like, people would just be offended by the invasion.
Are these aliens woke?
Right. I mean, it would be, no one would band, because we don't know how to band together anymore. We've become so divided and so polarized and so extreme. I hope, part of me
What's
wants,
that pronoun?
Part of me wants to believe that we would, as a society, band together if there was truly an alien invasion, which is we're talking about. Like,
It could happen.
I'm not saying it can't. Listen, I think there's a better shot of AI creating robots that take over before
We'll create our own before they come here.
Yeah, I feel like we will create our own species to destroy us before aliens come here. I think aliens probably came here, built a pyramid, and said, "These people are crazy. We're out."
Can't we just pull the plug?
I don't know. On AI?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, man.
There's too much money in it.
No, if it gets out of hand, it still has to come from an energy source, right?
Greed is greed.
And not to mention, and that is not just a monetary thing, but also a spiritual thing. Because, let's say, okay, people say, okay, AI has gone far enough, because of all the technology that's come with it and the dangers of. Couldn't they say that also about the internet?
Yeah.
Then what?
Right.
Couldn't they say that about Facebook or Twitter? And if that goes away, then what? What happens next?
Yeah, technology is not going to reach.
I guarantee you take away Facebook, there will be more chaos with that than there ever would be with an alien invasion.
Yeah, when Facebook goes down, people lose their minds.
I would love it to go away. I would love it to go away.
Social media is here to stay.
I enjoy it, but I am aware that how it has transformed society. I yearn for the pre-Facebook days.
That's where you go through all society and hit the unfollow button, Eric.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
I can't.
You should just
First
follow
off, I
one
like
person.
it too much. I'm addicted. Second off, I use it for my career. If I want to go do something different.
I believe it was Edgar Allan Poe talked about the idea of perverseness in his One Tale of the Cat. How ultimately there's just this piece of us that will always want to seek out the bad. That might be why we don't put in the effort to make it as good as we possibly can.
It's interesting. Or you could be, what's that famous book by? What's the book? Who wrote Walden?
Walden? I don't know.
We'll look it up for next week.
I just want to farm peas and live alone in the woods.
Okay.
And find my happiness with the simplicity of life.
I like it. Do it.
Go read a synopsis on the book. You'll get it.
Good show, man.
This has
Good
been
show.
a good time here. Matt Durzik, Rocco Cozza, Merrick McKenna. Thank you for making us a small part of your Saturday. We don't know what we accomplished today, but we did a lot.
Yeah, my brain hurts.
Yeah, my brain is very sore.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
And be kind.
And Rocco did not come up with a big word today.
I also don't know a ball gag either.
Thanks for clarifying, Matt. We'll see you next Saturday.
So. Thank you, friends.
Be kind.
Thank you for listening to How We See It with author and attorney Rocco Cozza, along with realtor and podcaster Eric McKenna. Content and sponsorship have been provided by Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna. Tune in next Saturday for another edition of How We See It, right here on Beaver County Radio.
If it's Saturday afternoon, it must be time for Solid Gold Saturday.
Whether you were cruising through the parking lots of Jerry's and Hank's or dancing at the Rochester Legion,